What's kicking, legal chickens? It's your favorite neighborhood lawyer, Marquel Cade with Cade Mark Law, back with another resource for you. We thought, since it's post-Valentine's Day, we'd talk post-nuptial agreements today. So today we're going to talk about 3 differences between a prenuptial agreement and a post-nuptial agreement. The first fundamental difference between a prenuptial agreement and a postnuptial agreement is very obvious for most people: timing. A prenuptial agreement is executed before a marriage, and a postnuptial agreement is executed after a marriage, not after a marriage ends. Don't get these confused. An antenuptial agreement, or a separation agreement, or a divorce agreement, or a divorce settlement agreement, as they're also called, is what you're thinking of when you think of a postnuptial agreement that comes after the marriage. But typically a postnuptial agreement is something that you sign with your spouse while you're still married, but after you guys have gotten married. The second fundamental difference between a prenuptial agreement and a postnuptial agreement isn't as obvious as timing. This difference is the consideration required. Remember, from our talk about consideration and contracts and contract formation, consideration is just that mutual exchange between both parties. It's what you're promising in exchange for something in the contract. For prenuptial agreements, the act of getting married is the consideration. So oftentimes for a prenup, you don't really need additional consideration. For postnuptial agreements, this is a little bit different. The act of getting married isn't enough because you're already married. So oftentimes for a postnuptial agreement, there must be some additional exchange between the parties for the agreement to be valid. The third fundamental difference between a prenuptial agreement and a postnuptial agreement is the amount of disclosure required. Now remember, when we talked about prenuptial agreements, for prenups, you must disclose all of your assets to your spouse, and you must fully disclose them. There's no hiding the ball. For postnuptial agreements, that level of scrutiny is just a little bit different. You don't always have to disclose all of your assets, and a lot of times you aren't required to do so. For postnuptial agreements, there's a little bit different level of disclosure required. You don't have to disclose all of your assets for most states. For some states, it's okay to disclose some of your assets, or only the assets that you guys are talking about in the agreement, or assets that you've acquired since you've been married but haven't signed the agreement for yet. That's all, folks. Thank you so much for joining us today. We didn't give you our usual disclaimer alert because prenuptial and postnuptial agreements are usually covered by state law. You want to check with the lawyer in your state or with your state's laws to ensure that your prenup or your postnup is up to snuff. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been 3 differences between a prenuptial agreement and a postnuptial agreement. I am Marquel Cade with Cade Mark Law, your favorite neighborhood lawyers. Protect your brand, grow your business. Stay frosty, my friends. We'll see you next time.